So, in here, Finland, our government, specifically, our Prime Minister Petteri Orpo has been accused of being involved in corruption in the case of Helsinki Garden, in which Petteri Orpo, the Prime Minister, has been accused of funding the Helsinki Garden project without going through the official process, how you should process things in Finnish politics, in the political systems. And in addition, there was this very, very concerning and problematic thing that the Helsinki Garden, one of the leaders of the project, he was also member of Kokoomus political party and has had connections and ties to this Petteri Orpo, the Prime Minister. So this was very huge thing, I would say, because the amount was very huge. It was 35 million euros, and Petteri Orpo did accept the funding last year to the Helsinki Garden, and Petteri Orpo did accept the funding as a possibly funding, which means that it might be still cancelled, the funding, or it might be approved, finalized, the funding. So that was also important detail on this corruption accusation, or this discussion in overall. So what happened? So in the last Tuesday, Petteri Orpo did call the whole parliament, all the politicians, all the political representatives who conduct, create, modify and so on laws in Finland, back from summer break back to this discussion about this possible corruption case. So Petteri Orpo, the Prime Minister, wanted to, by doing this, help to clear his name and increase his credibility in the politics, and increase his trustworthiness and so on. And overall, and also of course try to keep the Kokoomus political party's reputation as good as it can be, right? So just a little bit background, the Kokoomus political party, in my observation, what I have read many Yle News is heavily Finland's government funded, and there has been many news on the many various of decisions which Petteri Orpo has made to how Petteri Orpo has cut social security and everyday workers work security and many other things, and cancelled some fundings to some projects which will be considered which would be projects that usually like some other political parties like SDP or Vihreät would approve normally. So in this hearing, anyways, so what I was saying was that as I have read many of these news, I have seen thousands and thousands of comments that Finnish people overwhelming have not been so glad about these decisions which Petteri Orpo has made. So now, as there is this corruption case, possible corruption case, which Petteri Orpo might have been involved and so on, this was like a... So Petteri Orpo now tried to save his credibility and as a politician and so on by inviting all the politicians back from summer break to this hearing and to this discussion. And this is actually very rare. This happens very rare. Accordingly, I did read this news. And this happens very, very rarely, like every 5 or every 10 years, very rarely anyways. So this is not like a usual, this is not anything usual, that is something very special here. So this hearing was last Tuesday and I was there like 3 hours, and I had to say the air conditioning and the air purity could be, air quality could be much better in the room. So I managed to be there like 2 hours, and after 3 hours I was like, okay, here is anyways, I think be most of what this all the different political parties wanted to say. They have now said the things which they have, like, you know. So for example, so here in Finland we have like 7-8 political parties, and many did give statement that they do not give this like credibility to the Petteri Orpo government on this, how he handled this specific funding, Helsinki Garden funding. And those political parties which did not give this like credibility to Petteri Orpo, this like a political like a statement which political parties can give, which is like an indicator of how well, for example, Prime Minister has managed to do his job. And for example, SDP, Vihreät in English, Greens, and Vasemmisto, the left in English, were those political parties which did not which did not give any kind of good feedback to Petteri Orpo, and they did also give this distrust statement to government, to this Petteri Orpo government. Not only Petteri Orpo, but all the ministers, and also Keskusta, the center in English, was one of those. And then some other political parties decided to approve Petteri Orpo decision and the way how he handled this Helsinki Garden case. And those were political parties such as Kristillisdemokraatit, which is like Christian Democratic Party, and then Perussuomalaiset, Basic Finns in English, and then of course Kokoomus, and some other party did also in addition. So the result was that, but anyways, there was some political parties which I did mention now, which which did decide to give this statement that they either approve or do not approve the way how Petteri Orpo handled the situation involving this Helsinki Garden funding. And main thing here is that at the end of the day, so this did continue like 6, maybe even 9 hours, if I'm right, this conversation. And at the end of it, they did do this voting, and just a few percent of more of the votes were given that it was approved that Petteri Orpo did manage to handle this funding in a good manner, in a politically approved way. Okay, so but that is not all. So this conversation goes very deep. This was very involves many point of views. There were many good arguments from the different political parties why Petteri Orpo did handle this, the Prime Minister, why he did handle this poorly. And most of the political parties, just to summarize, try to bring up that the parliament, the politicians were not informed enough about this Helsinki Garden project and how it should be funded and how it is going to be funded and something like that. So they did not go into details what kind of information Petteri Orpo did not give to the politicians in the parliament, but that was arguments which the critics in the which the critical political parties did give, as they did give some speeches. And then their one main critic was that this was not handled according to even experts in a way that it should have been handled. The funding was not approved through the legitimate ways how you should handle these kind of funding. So, and one very good argument was from one of the politicians that he did say that according to this his own experience when he has built different kind of halls like sports halls, so he did try to imply that he has experience when it comes to building sports and event halls, and he did say that this how Petteri Orpo handled this funding, it did not go as it should have gone, right? So I think that was very strong argument, because this one politician did have actual practical knowledge how this kind of fundings and projects should be handled, and Petteri Orpo was not able to handle this. Okay, and then, and like I said, one thing was, like I did mention, was that even some of the experts who are experts in these political processes did come forward, and not in the hearing but in the news, for example, that this was not handled how it should have been handled, this funding. Okay, and well, some of the other arguments, there were many. Well, one very strong argument was from one political party that I try to summarize, because this is very, like I said, they were there like 6 to 9 hours. So I try to summarize some of the main arguments how the political parties did try to argument that what Petteri Orpo, why he did fail at his job. Okay, so one very strong argument, if not one of the strongest, was that Petteri Orpo was actually involved years before in some kind of creating some kind of handbook or some kind of guide how you should actually handle big projects and funding and increase transparency. This politician did especially that Petteri Orpo was involved some kind of project in years before where he was creating some kind of handbook, some kind of instructions how these kind of projects should be handled in terms of transparency. So that was a wrong argument, because if Petteri Orpo was in fact in some kind of project earlier where he did create some kind of handbook for all the politicians how they should handle projects and be transparent when handling different kind of projects, that is very strong argument if true, and if it's like and of course there's a lot of different questions, because let's say if it actually were true that Petteri Orpo was part of some kind of team in which the team did create some kind of instructions how to increase transparency in the parliament, then the question is still that, okay, how much Petteri Orpo was actually involved in the project, or what was his role, right? What was his role in the project? So there is many questions. I would actually argue, I would critique that I would have hoped that I would have heard a lot more comprehensive, lot more deeper arguments why Petteri Orpo, the Prime Minister, did fail at his job in this funding in this Garden case. I do think that many political parties did, like I did mention, SDP, the Vihreät in English, Greens, and Vasemmisto in English, Left. Many, and of course, like I did mention, also the Keskusta in English, Centre political parties. Many of these political parties did heavily criticize Petteri Orpo, really heavily. That was really nobody did not curse or shout or anything like that. Everything was very civil, everything was very professional. In Finnish, everything is handled very professionally, very nicely. So that is process in the politics. So there was no shouting or cursing or anything like that. The mood and the atmosphere was very relaxed. It was very professional. It was very direct. Everything, these political party leaders did come to hold their speech to the front of the parliament, and then there was also they did switch this system to a different system in which they did let all the politicians, not only the political party leaders, but all politicians, to ask or comment to this case and also ask questions from Petteri Orpo. And sometimes Petteri Orpo did give some kind of answers, and now I'm going to mention few of those answers which Petteri Orpo, how he did try to defend this failed funding, and how he did try to defend that, why he did fail at this project when it came to this Helsinki Garden case. So here are a few of the arguments. So he did try to defend himself by, if I remember right, here's the thing. Let's say in overall, I do think that the Petteri Orpo, the Prime Minister, arguments how he did try to defend himself, they were quite weak. They were quite weak in my opinion. He did not even actually defend against all the arguments. He did only mention a few arguments, and if I remember right, the few were that, first of all, that he did go through, in a way, the process, how the funding should have been handled. If I'm right, that was one of Petteri Orpo's argument. He did mainly try to divert the question and the critic to the. He did try to divert the discussion into this whole different topic that Finland needs these kind of big sports halls and to these kind of big event places where big artists can, for example, come and like, for example, singers can come to Finland and have this like a actual good high quality space where they can sing and there can be a lot of people, right? Okay, I do agree that is important. But the arguments how Petteri Orpo, the Prime Minister, did try to defend how he felt to handle this Helsinki Garden place, I do think that his arguments were very weak. I did take many videos, many video clips. I have to go through some of them and try to take a look and what I could find there and you know, if there was something really that I do not remember at this very moment. But this was like the compilation what did happen in the hearing. Like I said, the hearing was very, the mood and atmosphere was very calm, it was very relaxed, it put the political parties, they did really give quite heavy critical and critical the Petteri Orpo Prime Minister, and that he has failed as a Prime Minister and in many ways, and there is like this democracy in Finland at stake, and you know that this has weakened in a way Finland's democracy or how people might view Finland's democracy. So it was really like many politicians, like I did mention, these parties were not happy how Petteri Orpo did handle the Helsinki Garden case. So it was quite surprising that there was still that many political parties that in overall at the end the end result was that most of when there was voting at the very end of this discussion, most of the political parties did still approve how the Petteri Orpo did handle this case. I would assume and estimate that most of the Finnish people are not happy with this result. Of course, there is the question: what should have been happened to Petteri Orpo? Should he like leave the position? I think that maybe could be a good topic for another video. But the main thing here is that I do think that if we take a look at this state of democracy still in Finland, I think it is very good state because Petteri Orpo did decide to cancel the funding in the last June before actually this discussion and this meeting which was last Tuesday. So Petteri Orpo, the Prime Minister, did cancel the funding and so on. And now I remember there was this very weak argument from Petteri Orpo that he did try to defend himself and how he handled this Helsinki Garden funding by saying that now he did cancel this funding, this Helsinki Garden funding, because there was like before at some point he did like try to create this like a mental image that before, maybe months before or half a year before, there was some discussion already that this Helsinki Garden project should be cancelled anyways at some point. Okay, well, then the question is that why Petteri Orpo did wait until he got exposed that he handled this funding in the wrong way, by not following the official ways how you should handle this kind of funding. So that was very weak argument from Petteri Orpo, the Prime Minister, and I do think that that was very, very bad argument, that he would have cancelled the Helsinki Garden funding anyways, because they did, according to his words, already get some information that it has to be cancelled or something like that. So it was a very weak argument. So I would say that in overall the Petteri Orpo, the Prime Minister arguments, how he did try to defend himself, it was really, really weak. But I have to say that in a way he is right that Finland needs this kind of big events place, this very new big event arena or something like that, for artists, for example, that some very popular internationally known artists can come to Finland and sing. And for example, this actually can be its own video, because this is a very interesting topic, because it can have some kind of effects to Finland's economy if there comes like a big artist. But there was actually this conversation, let me actually add this also, that when some political parties did try to critique the Petteri Orpo, the Prime Minister, actions on this funding, Helsinki Garden funding, some of the political parties did try to critique that there is no official way or any way to calculate that if Finland government would build this kind of huge stadium, for example, there is no way you could calculate that it will be profitable or but I would say that is maybe problematic statement. I would say that was one of the more weak arguments from the critics. I would say that was because I would say that if you look at some calculations, I would say that maybe there would be like some kind of benefit if there would be more of these like a big huge stadiums in Finland. But like I said, this goes very complicated, because like I said, these are very complicated issues, that could there be or could there not be some kind of benefit in Finland, to Finland's economy, if there would be a huge stadium in Finland. So I'm not going to go into more detail in this video, but maybe that would be a good idea for another video. But I do think this was very good summary what happened and so on, and I will and so on. I will take a look, and if I will take make some kind of more in-depth video about this issue or not, but I do think this was very good summary and so on. So thank you for watching and subscribe for more videos, and have a nice day.